The night arrives, and after a long work or school day, in the solitude of your room, you decide to go to bed. You turn on your phone and begin to consume entertainment content. Minutes later, you find yourself immersed in an endless list of increasingly explicit and suggestive videos. You enter a trance-like state, completely losing track of time. Eventually, you regret accessing that page you promised never to open again. A sense of misery and self-revulsion overwhelms you, but you finally decide to go to sleep. When you wake up, the first thing you do, almost automatically, is check your phone notifications. You get distracted in the process and, without realizing it, lose another 45 minutes of your life browsing through a new, endless series of videos. This content fades quickly from your memory, and you wonder why you keep falling into this cycle that seems never ending. You've developed an addiction. In this video, I will show you how to overcome addictions. Addiction is, as Plutarch would say, man's worst enemy, and a few addictions are enough to overshadow many virtues. But what is addiction? The word addiction comes from the Latin vitium, meaning defect. Over time, this word came to refer to the moral defects of a person, such as lying, hating, avenging, or coveting. For the Stoics, addiction is the carnal desire to prolong pleasure. It is, therefore, the opposite of virtue. Marcus Aurelius said that addiction is a punishment in itself. It only leads to the destruction of the being as it arises from a poor exercise of reason. There is no virtuous person whose reason is continually overshadowed by their body's amoral desires. The body, in and of itself, has no morality. It does not distinguish between good and evil. It only craves the sensory experience of stimuli. Those who lack self-control, according to the Stoics, are dominated by their body's desires, inevitably falling into addiction. For Christians, addiction represents the inclination toward sinful nature, everything contrary to the divine. Lust, greed, gluttony, envy. As Paul said in his letter to the Romans, "I do not understand what I do. For what I want to do, I do not do. But what I hate, I do." This phrase sums up the constant struggle of man in his daily life. He knows he must abandon his addictions because they are obstacles in his path to physical, intellectual, and spiritual growth. However, he is influenced by his temptations and ends up doing what he so despises. It's impossible to think of addiction as a means to attain virtue, divinity, or excellence. No one in their right mind would consider pornography as a worthy pursuit. Giving in to addictions, passions, and bodily temptations momentarily returns us to our animal side. We momentarily strip away reason, the quality that makes us intrinsically human. We act on impulse, prioritizing momentary pleasure over true purpose. This is equivalent to briefly abandoning the freedom of our actions. If we are not the ones choosing the addiction, it means we are subject to a greater force, slaves to the flesh. Giving in to addiction is disrespecting oneself. It is the absence of self-love. Because when you love someone, you don't persuade them to do something that harms them. On the contrary, you seek to preserve their well-being and integrity. The equation is simple. The more you love yourself, the fewer decisions you will make that contaminate your soul. The less you love yourself, the more decisions you will make that destroy your being. The quality of your life depends entirely on the quality of the decisions you make in the present. It's pointless to think of quitting addiction in the future. Virtue is a continuous choice in the here and now, not in what has already been, nor in what will be. But how do you quit addiction? The first and most important step is to recognize it. Carl Jung said that it's not possible to change something unless we accept it. You can't expect to win the war if you don't know what you're fighting against. It's imperative to know your enemy in order to fight against it and come out victorious. It's difficult to admit that we are under the tyranny of our passions. We avoid taking responsibility for our actions to protect our pride. As human beings, we hate the idea of being wrong. However, acknowledging that we are under the slavery of an addiction is the first step in confronting it. Tonight, if you have the courage to face reality, you can disconnect from all technology, sit on your bed, and dedicate a few minutes to reflect. What are my weaknesses? What are my addictions? What is preventing me from developing as a human being? The most curious thing about all this is that right now you have already thought about something you need to work on. You already have an idea of what you despise and want to change. The second step is accepting that addictions do not disappear overnight. It's necessary to accept that you will embark on a journey where strong storms will shake your character. Your courage, bravery, and self-control will be tested. Seneca said that the strongest man is the one who is master of himself. Do not expect to eradicate your addictions immediately. Addictions will always hover over your life, like crows flying over a corpse. In moments of weakness, frustration, or lack of motivation, they will attack your psyche with seductive temptations. That's why overcoming addictions is an achievement that only the strongest of hearts and spirits can attain. Once you've recognized your addiction, you can either choose to let it consume you until you develop deep regret and an inescapable depression, or you can choose to shape yourself into a man of excellence and face the challenges that come with this decision. It's better to be remembered as brave than as cowardly. The third step is to set a difficult but achievable goal. If you have an addiction to pornography, for example, you could set a goal to eliminate all erotic content for the next 7 days. Ideally, be radical and quit it immediately. However, on the path to virtue, it's completely understandable and acceptable to fall and rise again. No one is perfect. What matters is the process. Remember, you don't have to be too hard on yourself. Making a mistake doesn't mean you're not capable of achieving what you set out to do. On the contrary, it's proof that you have enough character to face the darkness that many avoid confronting. When you achieve a difficult but achievable goal, you will feel empowered to do it again, or, in the best case, make it more challenging. As you increase the difficulty of your goals, you are not only growing as a person, but you are developing character. You get to know your limits, your weaknesses, your attitudes, your abilities. You mature and get closer to excellence. Remember, excellence doesn't arise from addictions. It arises from the battle against them. Excellence, therefore, is a habit, as Aristotle would say. The fourth step is to never lose sight of the main goal, to be a man stronger than his own impulses. You will fall, you will rise, you will question yourself, you will despair, you will get angry, you will be happy, you will want to give up, you will get motivated, you will be sad, you will be proud, you will experience a wide range of emotions, both positive and negative. All of this is part of the journey to virtue. But if you lose sight of the goal, you will return to the exhausting cycle of temptation, gratification, and regret. It's imperative that you keep in mind the goal of being a man stronger than his desires, Only through the genuine desire to be a better man will you find enough reasons not to give in to addictions. Because if you truly love yourself, you will choose to cut off everything that prevents you from growing. Otherwise, you will find a way to lie to yourself, to convince yourself that there are no addictions to eradicate. You will create facades around your story to evade reality, and eventually, you will find yourself face to face with the same inner death. As Carl Jung said, a life not lived is a sickness from which one can die. Recognize your shadow, accept it, and confront it. Integrate your defined purpose. Seek virtue. Seek excellence. Build yourself into a man of honor. Let your life be an example to follow. Live peacefully with what you are and what you do. Be a man who does not bend to his addictions. Be a man ready for war but in search of continuous peace. I invite you to seek the way, the truth, and the life.